Hey everyone, welcome to today's live force event. I hope you guys are all doing really well. Today we're going to be talking about one of my favorite subjects, and that is animation. But more importantly, we're also going to talk about how does animation relate to figure drawing, right? So what is the relationship between those two? Let's see, and get my mug up here for you guys. Okay, weird. It's odd that it's not showing up. So let's get started, right? Let's just head over. We're in Photoshop. We have a lot to talk about today, and it's going to take me a little bit of time to show you guys the front end of this. It's so weird. I don't know why my live feed is not coming up. Strange. All right. Technical difficulties. You'll have to look at my photograph. So let's get to it, right? We want to figure out, like, what do the two have to do with one another? Well, while I'm doing this, I wanted to share with you guys, some of you may not know this about me, but I was actually, or am actually, a Disney trained animator. So I went to school in New York City. I went to School of Visual Arts, and while in school, I went to school for comics, right? My goal was to be a comic book artist. And ironically, I found out by junior year that that Disney had an internship program with the school. And I happened to find out, well, to be a little more accurate or more detailed here, I was in a history of animation class at the beginning of my junior year, fall of junior year. And a guy named Tony Cipriano that I was an acquaintance with, I was kind of friendly with the year before, came and spoke at this class. And he told us about how amazing this Disney internship was. And like I said, before that, I wasn't thinking about Disney at all. I was thinking about comics. I'm thinking about Spider-Man and Superman and so on, right? Batman. So I get to, so I, he was inspiring, like super inspiring. And I thought, you know what, maybe this is something I want to do, and so I went and spoke to him after the class because I knew him from the year before, right? So I sort of had some confidence around going and talking to him, which maybe I wouldn't have had otherwise. I don't know. So I went down to talk to him after the class, and he said, he had his portfolio that had gotten him into the class, into Disney, down in his car, right? And I thought, okay, that's pretty cool. Let's check it out, right? He's like, do you want to see it? And I said, yeah, I would love to see it. So long story short, I went down there to his car. Here we are in New York. Walked down the block to his car parked on the street, and I looked at his portfolio and I thought, damn, I think I could do this, right? Which kind of shocked me because I was focused on comics, right? So so from there on out, right, junior year, senior year, I had two portfolios that I was like working on. I was working on a Disney animation portfolio, and I was working on a comic book portfolio, and obviously the rest is history. I got into animation before I got into comics, and that changed my whole life, changed my career. I worked on Lion King, ironically, in the time that I was there. So I just got really lucky, timing wise, of course, to work on such an amazing film. And like I said, it was career changing. It was life changing, because after that, I was able to get a job in video games. I was freelancing in New York with no problem, getting work. All I had to do was walk in somewhere, in New York City and say, hey, I worked on Lion King and I was trained at Disney, and, and I had a job, it was like no problem whatsoever, right? So, and that led to, believe it or not, a lot of that really led to force drawing, right? So me having a sense of more, movement. I learned some of this when I was in school. I had a couple of instructors in school that really affected me, in a very deep way. And then Disney animation affected me as well at that time. And it kind of clicked all these different approaches that I was learning in school. It clicked them all together. And then when I got back and I started teaching in the mid to late 90s is when I started pushing all this stuff together, right? And here we are today, 30 years later, talking about force on YouTube, right? So that's how it all kind of happened. So, what I want you to be aware of, and this is one of the things that's probably hardest to teach about force and force drawing, is that I have this animation experience behind me, and it's not like I teach every student that comes to drawingforce.com like how to animate, and all the principles of animation, right? I take some of them, and we're going to talk about some of those today, and try to bring that to the figure drawing. But that doesn't mean that a force student has all that animation experience. I don't have years of working at Disney Animation behind them to allow that to affect their work, right? So, but we're going to give you a couple of top level tips, like just things to think about, while you're drawing the figure. So I'm going to cover the bouncing ball and all these top tricks, and then Mrityunjay will show you how some of this stuff can be brought to the figure, right? So here's this bouncing ball. This is going to take me a minute now, so bear with me. I'm going to put this on a timeline and just kind of space these guys out. So let's do this, and let's shrink this guy down. And I think that I hopefully laid this out correctly. I started with 11. So I'm not gonna worry about, those of you that know anything about animation, I'm not gonna time out these frames, and say each one has to be X amount, or, so on and so on. I'm just gonna space these out and scrub the line here so you guys have a sense of how it works, and then that'll lead to a deeper conversation, right? Any of you out there that are animators by any chance, while I'm sitting here setting this up? Any animators in the house? Right. No, I don't need that. I don't need that. There.
I am kind of.
Kind of animator?
Yeah, kind of animator.
Kind of animator. Let's see, what did I not do here? Did I put those all in one layer? Let's see. Let's go from here to here and move them. Anyone in the chat responding to that call?
People are interested in becoming one.
Yeah, Gerardo is here. Gerardo is someone that I mentor, and he's a 3D animator. Welcome, Gerardo. I do have some 3D animators, I have to say, on the website. There's another student, I don't know if he's here today, but Richard has worked at some of the major animation studios, including Sony. In fact, he's finishing up, I think, on the film with the superhero dogs. I always forget the name of it, but he was working on that, so that's kind of cool. I remember, I don't know if he's still on the site. I'm not sure, actually, now that I think of it, but there was a student who worked on the DreamWorks Trolls show that was on Netflix, was on the website for quite some time. We definitely had our share of animators. What is this frame here? Let's get rid of this down here. Okay, so this, what you're seeing here, for those of you that aren't aware of, of the bouncing ball, right? The bouncing ball is kind of like the trademark training ground for learning how to animate. Okay, so here's my bouncing ball, right? You can see I just did a couple of frames of it, just enough to share with you all the stuff we're going to talk about today, right? So see, magic, right? We got bouncing ball. Let's see, I'm kind of curious how the timing is, actually. These frames are holding very long, though. Yeah, see, it's just sitting there forever, right? Because the frame, this layer is being held for too long. Right now, you're going to see it switch point, right? So how does animation relate to figure drawing, right? That's really the question of today. Well, there's quite a few ways that the two relate to one another. So let's take a look, right? I'm going to keep this open. I'll bring it down here. Let's increase the size of this again, and I'll scrub this line. The first thing before I drew anything is, believe it or not, is arcs, right? Arcs are actually pretty important. Let's create a new layer here. Oh, I already have it. Look at me. So arcs are actually pretty important. Why are arcs important? Well, arcs are important because in animation, what you learn and this is all based on physics, by the way, right? And animators are, I always thought I know they are, animators are people who have some understanding of physics. You have to know physics because you're making things move. And the way things move on the planet Earth is based on gravity and the physics of, that go along with that, right? So you have to have some sense of it, right? So when it comes to the human figure, it's like, why do arcs matter, right? Well, arcs matter because number one, at the simplest level, right? Here, let's just say this is a torso, right? All the joints in the body, right, are locked in, right? Like so, kind of like a 3D model almost, right? Like here's a stick figure, it's like this and like this. And because of that, this elbow, for instance, is going to move on an arc, right? Because it's locked in at one point. There's a ball and socket joint here, right? Now, that arc, of course, is three-dimensional, more like a dome, right? Because your elbow can move in all different directions, 300, well, not 360 because your body's in the way, but 180, a little more than 180, right? And kind of fill out a dome of trajectories, right, in space that allow it to move. And then the same thing based on the joint, right? We have more of a hinge joint here at the elbow. Then all of a sudden, this is going to go at an arc, right? So it matters. It matters to understand that the body moves and turns in circles, in a sense, in arcs, especially like the arms and the legs at these joints, right? So being aware of the hip joint, the knee joints, the shoulders and the elbows, the wrists, right? That there's a moment of grounding, right? And then from there, things are moving around, and that's going to create arcs, right? So you want to be aware of that. There's a certain poetic trait, it's just poetry to that, the sense of moving these curves. Now, do we only move in curves? No, right? You could take your arm and kind of just thrust it forward. Let's say like with a sword, for instance, right? You can push something into a straight line with, let's say, your wrist, but your shoulder's still going to move, your elbow's still going to move, and that means you're going to have to move in these arcs. So you want to get a sense of that grace, I guess is what I'm getting at, right? There's a gracefulness to that, right? So keep in mind arcs. Arcs, by the way, are also a great way, and I never talk about this, I have to say. This is like the first time I've probably said this in years. But arcs are a great way of understanding proportion, right? Because, when you're moving the model and you're thinking even in three-dimensional space with the drawing, if I know the distance, let's say from here to here, that helps me understand, well, oh, if their arm was raised, like where's that going to land, or where does it hit on the body, which is, by the way, right around the bottom of the rib cage, right? So let's move this down. It would be like this. Here's the chest, right? So this would sweep down to about here, right? So again, arcs are an interesting idea because it also gives me a sense of proportion, right? So keep arcs in mind, this curvature that the body flows through and around, and that it can help you with proportion, okay? So that's the first piece. A really big one, which I did here in this animation, I hope, I'd like to call out to you, and I hope you see. And I think what also differentiates me as an animator from lots of animators is this idea of leading edge, okay? So you'll notice I didn't just draw a ball. I drew a ball with a darkened edge. And that edge is telling us that the ball is moving in a direction, right? It's going this way, you see, right? So that's really important. It's important to understand that it has direction, right? That it has momentum, that it's going somewhere, it's pushing somewhere. And that direction by even just drawing it in a ball, that direction tells me where the thing's going, right? Like this is where all the energy is, right? This is called the leading edge, LE, right? So this ball keeps doing that, right? I'm like driving it down. Here it hits the ground. By the way, those of you interested in doing a bouncing ball animation, you always want a contact drawing, very important, right? Your eye is reading all these images, right, very quickly. In film, it's 24 frames a second, so you hold these drawings usually at 2 frames each. So 12 drawings in a second, right? So at 1/12, I guess you could say, you're seeing this image and your brain wants to see the contact, right? It wants to see it touch. And then you have the squashing, right? And after the squashing, the ball's going to pop off the ground, right? So here again, you can see very clearly the leading edge, right? So I like using that not only as something like a bouncing ball, but I like using that in the figure all the time. To me, the human body is always going somewhere, right? I forget, it was last week, the week before, we talked about taking the entire pose and thinking of it as a simple shape to help give it direction, right? So that shape is telling you, like, where do I want this figure to go, okay? So the same thing is happening with the bouncing ball, constantly trying to say, like, where's it going? Where's it going? Where's it going, right? And it's following that arc, right? Of course, right? Following the arc. I think I'd stop just shy of the second hit, right? So when you're animating, if you're animating, try and think about the part of the character's body that is leading the way. What's great about animation is you are moving through time, right? So because of that, you have motion and you have this leading edge. When you're going off of a photograph, you have to use a little bit of your own imagination to figure out, you know, what direction do I think the model is going in, right? So let's see. So that's number 2, right? Leading edge, really, really, really important, okay? Always knowing where the character is going. When I teach on the website, we usually start that off with the torso, but in the end, when you get sophisticated with this, it could be any part of the body. It could be the palm of the hand that is motivating the body to move in a direction, okay? All right, so that's leading edge. Let's get back over here. Let's move this here. Okay. After the leading edge, this one you guys, I'm sure, have all heard about, which is squash and stretch, right? Squash and stretch is one of the most famous principles in animation, right? And you know, guess what? It's here in the bouncing ball, right? We're stretching here, stretching, and right here is where all the compression happens, right? We go through this massive change between these two drawings, right? You could literally feel the ball squash down against the ground, right? Kind of amazing if you think about it, that these two drawings that are just two different shapes make our brain think there's an object there that's compressing down against the ground, right? There's just two ellipses, right? With a little bit of leading edge in there, right? And our brain thinks, wow, that's really squishing down against the ground, right? So really impressive how, again, these drawings can fool our minds into imagining all this stuff, right? Anyway, squash and stretch, right? So in the human figure, again, this is really important. It can be a torso, you know, you can have a torso that's like really compressed and you want to think about the squashing of it, right? The sort of all the pressure getting pushed down and up, right? That's very different than a figure that's stretching, right? That's like this. You see? So when I'm drawing, I'm aware of this. I'm aware of, you know, the stretch, the leading edge, right? The direction here. Let's add more leading edge to this. I would say this figure is kind of pushing this way, right? This one is pushing upward, right? I'm going to push into that leading edge, right? So I have leading edge coupled with squash and stretch. Lots of times on models, for instance, you'll see a stretched leg. We'll have that outside, inside, outside rhythm to it, right? Like so. Okay. But maybe the model is compressed, right? Like they've squashed the leg, right? So suddenly we want like all this foreshortening, and I want to feel this this compression. Zoom in here. Right? I want to feel the compression of the leg getting squeezed, you know, getting squeezed in here. So again, squash and stretch, right? Squash and stretch. I'm thinking about the mass of it, the compression of it. I'm aware of the rhythm of it because this is coming from here, you know, going down and around and over to the front and then hitting into the heel like so. So those are the rhythmic moments, right? And over here we have rhythm much more open, right? It's faster. This is a lot slower, meaning the speed with which I can travel through these curves has slowed me down. Compression usually slows you down, and stretch is faster and speeds you up. You think about a car again, driving, it takes much more time to drive through something that looks like this than it does to drive through something that looks like this, you see? So to me, I keep thinking about how that compression slows down the force. Everything's getting trapped within the squashiness of it. In the chat, let's see. Oh, Richard, I was just talking about you. Welcome. So let's see. Like I said, any questions? I've always found it amazing when animators can make incredible animations on 5s and 6s, their level understanding and timings. Yeah, so that's like a whole other conversation, but what SSPD HEMS 999 is talking about is how long you hold a drawing for, right? You're basically shooting drawings, or at least you were shooting. Here, digitally, I could just tell this, I could tell a drawing how many frames I want it held on. So 5s and 6s means you're holding it for 5 frames, or let's say 6 frames. I don't know if you're talking about 5 or 6 seconds, but let's say you even held something on 5 or 6 frames. That's a long time in an animation. All of a sudden it'll feel like stuff stops. So you have to be smart about where you hold, how you hold things, why you hold things. Typically, if something is held, there'll be an overlapping action, like a scarf, right? So maybe somebody's running and they stop, and then the scarf still moves. So something is moving, even though the body is still, and it kind of fools your brain, you know, into thinking that things are still moving along, right? That it hasn't changed, right? So these are all the primary things to be aware of, right? You want to be aware of arcs. You want to be aware of leading edge, super, super important. And you want to be aware of squash and stretch, right? I'm going to close this real quick. I think I hopefully made my point with the animation. Let me close all this down here. And I want to just kind of sketch out of my head here for you guys for a quick second before I hand it over to Matunjay. There's one other thing I guess I want to bring up that to me is real secret sauce for learning force and animation. You know, we're always talking about line and how this line is like really important, right? This line, and line equals force. And if line equals force, in a way, also line equals speed. Okay. Line equals speed. So innately speaking, when, again, as I said with the leg, if I draw a straight line like this is pretty fast. I can move through this line quickly. Again, if I was a car, right? Looks like a pickup truck. I can move through that pretty fast. If the line is like this, well, that's different, right? I might be able to come in fast, but in the end, right around here is where I have to slow down the most, right? Because energy wants to go straight. It wants to go like this, right? So we expend energy, right, as we go through an arc like this. Well, guess what? This can be brought over to animating, right? Because if you think about the bouncing ball, right, here, let's go to this straight line again. If you think about the bouncing ball, you know, where it goes straight, which is like right here, where the curve is the straightest, it picks up speed. So it's going really fast right when it hits the ground, right? And then it's going fast again, and it slows down in the arc. Now, there's 2 reasons slowing down the arc, of course. One is because it's an arc. Number 2 is because it's losing the battle against gravity, right? The gravity is winning, right? Gravity always wins, right? This is going to come like lower and lower and lower and lower until the ball stops over here, right? But in general, as you're, let's say you're animating acting versus a bouncing ball, and this was, you know, a character's hand. This ball is their hand now, right? Their hand is going to slow down, right? Notice the drawings are closer to one another, right? And then if I do this, they'll start to separate like so, you see? So line and arcs innately already represent speed. Now, ironically, again, students at drawingforce.com who are learning about the force line know this through the idea of stuff like skating, right? So, we skate the page a lot there, right? To practice this kind of thing. And I try and teach them that there's changes in speed, right? Because it's physics. What I want you to be aware here, because we're talking about animation, is this actually can affect the timing of your animation, right? So I don't know if I'm making sense or not here, but the curvature is going to slow things down and the straight is going to speed things up. And that's basic physics, right? So there's a lot of power to the common sense of this line and how you time things out. And again, that means things would be right on top of one another in here, and then they're going to separate, right? The further the distance between drawings, the faster something's moving, right? So it's moving really fast, and then it slows down, gets on top of itself, and then it speeds up again, you see? And that line is what we try to bring over to force drawing when drawing the figure, right? So if I have a figure drawing, again, and I say this is the back, like the back might be moving really fast, right? It's kind of an open curve. But I hit the shoulder and I go through that. Wow, things really slow down there because all the energy is getting exerted and burned out inside this curve, right? And then let's say the arm goes like this and sweeps back. Well, that's fast, right? So this is slow. And then this is fast. And this is fast. You see? So now I got fast, slow, fast. And as I draw that, if I can get that to actually happen for me, amazing, right? Like I can go faster here, push, push, push in there, right? And then boom, I'm out of there quickly again, right? And I could flow actually through that. There's some speed to my line because it's also easier to draw. It's like almost a straight line with just a little wiggle in it, you see? Okay, so again, in closing, before I hand this off to Mritunjay, we want to be aware of leading edge. That tells you where something is going. So we did that with the ball, right? Bouncing ball. It's like if it's going this way, I want to draw the ball with some heaviness on the front end because I'm actually thinking about how the energy of it is cutting through the air that way, right? It's a leading edge. You want to be aware of arcs, right? Just be aware of the grace of things. The things move in lots of curves and arcs. And it also helps with, again, with measuring and proportion. And then last but not least is the really big one that most of you know, sort of super famous animation concept, which is squash and stretch, right? And that also can show up in the figure. And I gave you some examples of that today, right? Let's see, before I hand it off, any last questions? Yeah, so Mritunjay brought up, I guess to Peter and Marla, that yes, shapes are super important. Glad I catch this live session, welcome. Slow in and slow out. Yeah, most definitely. Yeah, talking about shape really fast. Shape in the figure, of course, is important. And when you learn how to animate, it's such a integral part of it. You can't take a bouncing ball that, let's say, is this size here, let's say pushing down like this, and then say it hits the ground and it's like this big. You see what I mean? That doesn't work. It's not the same volume, not unless it was coming forward in space, right? Which means it would get bigger. But when you animate and you do this for some time, you really start to understand, what they call the volume of it, right? But at the beginning, I usually try to teach students, not even so much volume, but just the shape itself, like how much paper space does that shape take up, right? And then think about it as volume because you could rotate it, right? All of a sudden we could add like somebody's nose to this, right? It's like, how does that work? How are they spinning and twisting in space, right? So things like that could affect the design of the object, right? But I guess what I'm getting at is the silhouette here is really important, right? And you don't want the silhouette to vary too much as something like the ball squashes and stretches because then it doesn't feel like it's the same ball anymore, right? So when you're drawing the figure, silhouette's really important, especially if you're really trying to capture the model. You want to have a sense of their silhouette. You don't want to make them too thin, too thick, right? Too tall, too short. It's a proportional thing, right? The silhouette really gives you proportion. And silhouette is just great, again, for seeing all the stuff we're talking about, seeing the leading edge. Like I do generally draw force lines to get me to force shapes, right? So I could see how this shape is going this way. And again, feels very bouncy ballish, right? But this could become, this could become a human body, pretty quickly, right? Like I could start adding arms and legs to this in anatomy and say, here's the rib cage. And right, what started off as a very simple abstract idea is starting to become a figure, okay? Let's see, force and rhythm are two different things. So back of me or everything in this world has force, but not, yes, that's exactly right. That's Mrityunjay talking. Yes, thank you, Mrityunjay. It's a bit off topic, but is there ever force in the back of the knee? Yeah. Yeah, I mean, everything has force, but any part of the body is getting pulled down by gravity, to Mrityunjay's point, but that doesn't mean it's like a rhythmic location in the body that you would want to hit. It's not a truck stop on the way down to the foot. Right? It's not where you're going to go. Okay. All right, Mrityunjay, you ready? I think I have to give you share control here.
Yeah.
Let's do that. Co-host. Okay, I think that you can now share.
Yeah, let me try. Yeah, I think it works. Okay, I think you see the screen.
Yes, I can see.
All right, there we go. So, thank you, Mike, for setting me up. That was really great. It was
Of course.
it's kind of pleasure to hear your Disney experiences and how you get into it. Well, so now we've seen bouncing ball, like how this it's simple, right? It's just like a ball. It's like a fleshy ball, and it's used to teach like all these kind of principles, like animation principles, and there are like many more. I think there are like 12 principles, like mainly. So and most of them like are presented bouncing ball, and now we just need to see how it's brought into the figure drawing, right? So one of the mains, I mean, everything is main in here, but I think leading edge is the one that helped me like the most to even do my drawings now, even when I'm not animating. But one of the secrets to the energy in the figure drawings is thinking about every pose as emotion, right? It's like, for example, you see this picture here. I'm gonna zoom it up. So many people would see it just as a picture. It's like, oh, it's like a photograph. It's stiff, it's never gonna change. But I don't see it like that. I see it like a frame. It's like, oh, this model is performing this motion, from wait a second. Oh, what happened to this one? Background. All right, there we go. So I will always look at this model or any of the photographs. It's just like, oh, this model is like standing, probably like this. Obviously, they're not, they will stand neutrally and then they will like go into the pose, something like that. So I will consider like what I say is past, present, and future. Okay, like mainly these three stages of the poses, right, of the time. And for me, like the pose in front of me is always like the present moment. Okay, so okay, in the present moment, this pose has been performed by the model, but there has to be a past for it. Past means the neutral pose, like they probably be standing right before taking the pose, and then like a future of it. Okay, so a future of it would be pushing the pose even more. Okay, while still keeping the integrity of the pose. I mean, you don't need to change the pose altogether. So for some people would say, oh, maybe he can go to the other side. Maybe he can do something like this. But that would be the change of the pose itself. Okay. So for the future of this pose, or the next step would be just to bend even further, right? To bend even further, that would give us like a future pose. Okay. Obviously now the model has limits and they cannot like bend forever, but those are all the things that we need to keep in mind in order to like think about all these three steps. Okay, past, present, and future. Neutral pose, the present pose, which is in front of you, and the future pose is like adding like the extra bit to it, right? All right. So using all of that, using this leading edge knowledge. Now I'm just gonna do like a quick 3-4 frame animation, and let's see how it works. Okay, like let's say on a figure drawing. So let's start with this pose itself. Okay, let's start with present. You can go, you can perform this exercise in any way that you want. Some people, when I train, I mean, when I teach people in mentorship, I usually start with the neutral pose, but you can also start with the same pose, and then you can add like frames before and after. Okay, so let's start with this one. Okay, so okay, we have a frame in here. I'm just gonna do a quick one. It's not gonna be uh, whatever, like a very clean animation. Don't expect that. I've been guilty of like being a very aggressive animator. When I was like animating, and I did actually animation for about 1 2 years. So probably not that noob in that, but definitely not an expert at that too as well. Anyway, I'm just gonna do a quick rundown. Okay, so for me, the leading edge is this one. Okay, this shoulder right here. So just like the bouncing ball that we see, um, you definitely want the line weight. Okay, you want to use the line weight to present that edge in there. And for me, like this is the leading edge is this shoulder. Okay, and see how the force is like going into this shoulder, like hitting, right? So usually, if I want to present it, I would say uh, this blue thing is like the directional force, and this orange one, which we usually represent, let's say pick this orange. We say like this is the applied force, okay, like hitting to that edge, and that is what's creating this motion, like this forward motion, okay, like going in there. All right, so that's the first frame. Now head is also acting like the back of the head is also acting in a kind of a leading edge sense, but it's just that we want to capture this big idea first and then like go to the head afterwards. Okay, so that's why like you want to like choose a leading edge whenever you're choosing a leading edge. Try to choose that in the torso itself first, and leading edge could be anything, by the way. It could be the hand, it could be the knee or whatever, right? Basically, again, the concept is you just want to like push the pose further with all the integrity of the pose. You don't want to change the pose, but you want to like push it further. So leading edge could be anything, but try to choose a leading edge from the torso itself, and then you can move forward with that. All right, so in a way that you see like this edge in the head, at the back of the head here is also like a leading edge. All right, now we just gonna do like a quick rhythm. And this is also what gave me freedom, by the way, while drawing this metaphor, this like analogy is like, oh, this is just a frame, like an in-between, okay, in that whole motion. And I've just been like captured that one. So that's why I like draw these aggressive lines all over, because oh, I want to draw arcs. Now here's like a conversation on the arc, by the way. So for example, okay, we're gonna be using that in the next frame. So here's one. Let's do a next frame. Okay, I'm gonna put mic in here. All right. So I've said the previous the onion skin. Well, the animators like you guys out there would know about this concept. Basically, it's the last and the next frame that you can watch. So let's try to do like a neutral pose first. Okay, like how the person would be standing. Now you can choose arcs. Okay, that arc thing in here. Everything has a natural arc to it. So if this person would be leaning over, it should be like standing here somewhere, I guess, this way. Somewhere here, like this, standing here. Now, this might not be that far away, so maybe let's try to do this. Yeah, somewhere in here. That would be good. Uh, I'm not gonna change the legs too much, just like a very, very small and like quick motion in terms of like this animation. It's like he's just leaning back. Okay. So I'm just gonna assume that he's standing, in this like wide stance already. He's like in an anticipation of he has an intention of like doing this pose. He's already standing in that quite a strong sense in there. And let's do the arm. So I'm just gonna do one arm here and one arm like this. So this is already like it's we cannot say it's a very neutral pose, but yeah, just for the sake of simplification, I'm just gonna put it like this, okay? And there goes the head. So like a very simple head in there. All right, something like this. Uh, and then I need to like put this frame before this, okay? So this is the one, this is the second, and now let's add another frame. And yeah, let's try to do a future pose. I mean, pushing it a little bit more, okay? So the squash, right? The squash is going to be increased a lot. I think this would be the limit, you know, for Trinda, you know, Trinda the model here. I'm just gonna set onion skin frames like this. I'm just gonna just like setting things up. Okay. Anyway, so the squash is gonna become like super strong in here. Okay, this way. In the previous frame, by the way, you see like the squash is a little bit lesser. Okay. Like it's less strong. You know, here it's like very kind of strong. I'm again using arcs, okay? You see like the arc is how this arc is working all the way from the first frame to the last frame right here. And again, this is the leading edge, okay? Motion is still going in that way. Leading edge could change, by the way. So for example, now he wants to go in that neutral position again. His chest, you know, his chest and like the part of the abdomen could work as a leading edge, okay? So he'd be like moving down. But for now, like he's moving down. All right, so you might be like looking a little bit more up. There's also like an arc you can see right there, how this arc is working in the head as well. Okay. And this is going to be extreme case for his arm. Okay, right there. So I can push it a little bit more, I guess. Be something like this. And now this hand is like super strong. I love this abstraction in this pose, by the way. It's like this arm, we had a frame. It's like this hand is like an applied force, and it's getting applied to this edge here. See? So it's like a very good abstraction. Delete the frame. Okay. So this arm is coming. Okay, it's like hitting into this leading edge here. And I'm just gonna pull out the same links. All right, so we got this like three frame. Now before actually just playing it out, I'm just gonna hold it for, let's say 6 frames, you know, not gonna be too long, not gonna be too short. I know 6 frames a lot, but just like a 3 second, sorry, 3 frame animation. So I think it works. Now let's play it. Just gonna put mic here again now, right? Something like that, right? So you see like how the figure is like going into this direction. I know it's kind of a from just 3 frames, right? I could have add more and like add more smoothness to it. Okay, but you got the idea. Okay, how this like leading edge is working in the figure drawing. So there we go. So here's one. Let's say I'm just gonna group this stuff up. Group. So let's watch another one. Okay, now we will talk about the other. We have talked about the leading edge. We have talked about the arcs, right? Let's talk about volumes a little bit. Okay, so here I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm just gonna put like a animation to it. This is background. Yeah, like bring this up here. Okay. I'm gonna do the same thing, you know, we'll try to do some animation with this one, but we'll talk also about the volumes and stuff. It's a little bit in there as well. Like you cannot like divide these stuff up. It's like, oh, volume is a different thing, and stretching and squash, and there's arcs and like leading edge is all different. No, it's not the same thing. Like when they work together, they actually create the best animations, you know. So it's also in the previous reference that we saw about the volume, because as you see, like the model is like leaning back, so he's getting squashed, okay, just like we've seen in bouncing ball. But this one is a little bit more focused in terms of that volume structure. Okay. All right, so let's see. So what I'm going to do is this time I'm going to start with a neutral pose and see how this person, let's say they're just like standing like this. Okay? I'm just going to do a very rough It's like standing. This time I'm gonna draw the feet. All right. So here's like, so I'm using shapes here. I think some one of you mentioned actually shapes, like, oh, how important the shapes are. Very, very crucial, by the way, because the changing of the shapes, actually, yeah, it's like very, very crucial. One shape here, one line here and there, like could really ruin that animation, altogether. Because many a times, like animation is subtle, it's acting. It's not all the time just like motion. Okay, right now we're just talking about motion. I'm kind of going a little bit off topic, but uh, most of the time, not most of the time, but many a times animation is just thinking. Like the character thinking, and they're just like you want that drawing to feel, that, oh, this drawing is like really thinking something in their mind. Anyway, so shapes, shapes are very, very important, by the way. All right, so this person is standing. Let's see. So their arms. Just want to do like a quick simple arm right there, right here, and just do a quick head. Just gonna make it a little bit smaller. Hmm. That doesn't look that right. I mean, it's not that very clear. So let's do one more. Try to like draw it a little bit more clear. Not clean. I'm saying clear. Okay, so this leg is a little bit bent. This one is a lock knee, so kind of I'm using like a front to the back chase for this one. Uh, any questions in chat, Mike?
No.
No. Okay. All right. A little bit more like that. Okay. So this is now much more clear. Now, what we're gonna do is like, imagine this person being in the state. Now we're gonna make him lean forward. Okay, just like this pose. So this pose would be considered like a past. Okay, past pose, because this is the present pose that we are watching here. So I'm just gonna do that. Let's see. And maybe this is like called a pose to pose animation, by the way, where you had like your keyframes first set up, and then you would like do the in-betweens between those. And there are actually two methods. One is pose to pose and one is straight ahead. So in straight ahead, you just make one frame, draw the another one, draw the another one, and you go on and go on. So uh, yeah. So both have pros and cons, and there are like certain situations where you want to use them. But for now, I'm just gonna do kind of a post pose here. So here I'm like setting up this pose here. So here it goes, and this one goes like that. Now here you see what's happening in the neutral pose in this frame. He's standing, okay? So his body is actually straightened up, which we can consider a stretch position in a way, okay? Because definitely in the next one, you see like he's leaning back, he's leaning forward, okay? So there's like a squash which has been created in the front of the body, okay? So that's what actually tells us. So he's compressing, but his volume stays the same. Like when you do the actions, like any sort of actions, the volume doesn't change, right? It's like very straightforward, like a concept. Okay, so your volume doesn't change. So think of the bouncing ball as your body, and when you're drawing the body, think of that body as a bouncing ball. Okay, so this will like help you connect those things, connect those concepts. But he's definitely gonna compress. He's like scrunched up, he's like that. So let's try to do it again. Not to mention that I'm like using the leading edge and everything in here as well. Okay, so even in this case, the shoulder is leading edge because the motion is going in that direction. It's like this. All right, so let's draw the head really quickly and the arms as well. So I'm just gonna do a quick one. Okay, like that. And let's see the next one. I think the foot is off. here as well. This one's doing something like this. Okay, so I'm kind of like ruining the position of things, but yeah, hope you get the idea. Put mic in here, add an X frame. Now we're gonna do a feature of this one, and this one's gonna be a little bit more compressed in a way because just imagine yourself doing this kind of thing. You bend more, okay, you'll have like more pressure, okay, like more strain, right, in your abdomen section. So yeah, a little bit like more compression. But again, I'm using the arcs, I'm using the leading edge to do the same thing, to drive or to like get a guide of like what I really wanted to do. Okay. So again, compressing a lot of strength on the back, by the way, right? As well, a lot of force. Okay, more compressing, more compressing. And this is like when I used to like animate, we did some hand drawn as well, like hand drawn animation and some like rigging stuff. I really don't like that one to be honest. But when I did this, now right now we are doing like a very casual stream right now. It's not like, oh, timing and spacing and like all those principles, so we are not involving that. But when you're doing it professionally, we need to like focus, too hard. And people like Glenn Keane, how they like use anime, they like very aggressively doing it, but it's just to get the idea. Then you have to like clean it up later. So this is like the thumbnailing process. Okay, thumbnailing process means first of all you figure out like all the acting and emotion and everything, and you can clean it up later. Okay, so you don't because when I do this, and this actually came in the mentorship in a past like few weeks, a little bit like once or twice, like the animation conversation, and people like, oh, how do I control that? You're animating like this, and people like Glenn Keenan, how you control like all these things. It's just like this is your planning, and then you like focus on all those delineations of like spacing and oh, this line is a little bit here, this should be a little bit there, but without planning, right, without actually doing this stuff, it doesn't make any sense to like go to that part directly. You will not be able to express yourself into that part, right? So the thing is, just try to like focus on these kind of things which insinuates motion, which injects a lot of energy and motion and acting, like all these kind of what do you say, like the emotional content in your drawing first, like while you're animating, and then you can like go to all those steps where you would want to clean that up or make it look better or want to color it up or whatever. Okay. Anyway, so it's a little bit like this again. Maybe this like comes a little bit upward this way, see like the heel. Now see like that lower heel, that would also have a little arc. Okay. So like none of the part actually moves like without an arc. And if you're like doing that, there are like different types of arc as well. There's like a C arc, there's like an S, and like different kind of arcs in there. But just to keep it simple, I'm just like also including an arc in here. So you see like more compression. Okay, I'm putting like more line weight into that compressed area. Give me like it gives me like the limit to what like this model can do now. And probably the hand would also be getting like a lot of like scrunched under the body. And maybe like this hand, see like this hand is like coming off from here. I know this is in the neutral position in the first, but then he gets into the second frame, which is like here. So he has this like elbow in here. Now I'm gonna use that arc to kind of like define it in a way. So somewhere here, I would say, or maybe we can change the position altogether. Okay. So right now the arc is like kind of going down. Okay. Okay, hitting it the leading edge and everything. All right, there we go. Maybe now he can go further, not in the same, in the same direction, but now he's also gonna twist his torso or something like that to like continue the motion, but kind of like continuing in the same direction or something. But yeah, let's see how it works. So I'm just gonna hold it again for 6 frames. 6 frames. All right, let's see how it plays. Like that. So definitely need something from the first frame to the second frame. It's like very snappy at the moment. Okay. Uh, it's something like the in between to like kind of make it smooth. So let's try it out. Let's say we have something in here. I want to add a frame, and let's see if we can design like an in between to like make it a little bit more smoother. So he starts to like turn this way, I would imagine. Maybe he's still in an S frame. You see, like the template also changes. Okay, so in the beginning he's standing. Okay, basically straight. So I usually consider that as an S. Okay, he's standing relaxedly, and then he's like moving into that. So it converts to a C. Okay, because there's a stretch and the compression on there's stretch on one side and compression on the other side. So in between there would some sort of bridge. Okay, like we want to establish some sort of bridge. He's starting to bend over, but still an S. Okay, let's do the settings. So frames per second. Let's do 12. I don't know how to. Anyway, I just have to figure out the appropriate basics, whatever. So he's starting to like bend his head a little bit, leading edge is still like this shoulder. Okay, see like how all the force from the body like comes up in here, like hitting in there. Okay, that's what's driving the motion in there. He started to bend. Okay, starting to bend, like having some sort of activity in his torso, but it's not like fully completed C. Okay, in a sense. Now with his arms, he's starting to bring over his arms. Okay, so it's not like completely bent or something. Maybe he's doing this. Now, yeah, there's like a bunch of things. There's like a million things that are going on at the same time. There's like now silhouette. Now design your poses like very very clear, uh, so that every frame is very readable in a sense. Right now the silhouette is not very good as you can tell, and but anyway, I'm just gonna continue. That's kind of like an off topic, for today. So something like that. And now see in the first frame, the leg is something like this. Okay. It's straight, right, the front to the back. And now in the next frame, he's doing this. So somewhere in the middle, somewhere in the middle, he's starting to like, use his leg now. Okay. Involve his leg in a sense. So now I think it would convert to a front to front. Okay. Front to front. And then this leg, it's like a light box. Always want to like flip your frames. Mike would probably know it because he's like a traditional animator. So it's like flipping your frames and see like where the things are landing. So okay, this is going in this direction. Now this would also have an arc. Okay, as you can see, this would also have an arc like that. All right, time for the next leg. Okay, so one of the leg is like this. Now the next leg would be somewhere in here. He's starting to like pull his leg up like that. Yeah. So and then you can set the time. Right now everything is just set in 6 frame moments, but you can set up a timing and it would be a better animation. And then you would involve like cushioning, okay, or which you call anticipation in the beginning of the motion, and you call the cushioning in the end of the motion. That would make it again more smoother. So this is not an animation tutorial, but for your information. So let's try to play it now. Let's see. Yeah, a little bit more smoother. You see like a bridge is now like acting in a way. But all right. Uh, so any questions? Oh, Mike is on answering all the questions. Yeah.
I'm on it.
Yeah. So how much time? Yeah. Oh, so we are done. Huh?
Yeah, we're done. Perfect timing.
Yeah. Time passes quickly. So hope you like, guys, and hope and Mike is about to close, but from my end, I hope you do enjoy this little animation process, like how to integrate the bouncing ball concept into the figure drawings and how to use that, leading edge volumes and arcs. Okay, very very important in your animations. All right, I'll hand it over to Mike, and thanks for seeing my part.
All right, well, that's everything for today, guys. Hope you enjoyed today's live stream. Again, if you're enjoying what we're doing, please hit the subscribe button and hit the bell if you want to get notified on Fridays as a reminder to make sure that you come and join us on these Force Friday live sessions. Thank you, Matunjay, for the demo. That was awesome. You know, obviously, you're welcome. I want to preface this with, you know, I have to say in all the careers I've had, which are many, when it comes to drawing skill, 2D animation is probably the most demanding one of them all. It's pretty challenging to draw a figure in space with volume and all different types of perspective and moving in perspective, and then deal with timing and acting and understand human psychology. There's a lot involved. So I really, you know, bow to the powers of those guys that were 2D animators and were doing amazing work in that space. Definitely a tricky endeavor, but so fulfilling, right? So fulfilling to be a 2D animator and get your drawings to move. You know, I shared with you earlier when I met Tony, and that was kind of my gateway. That same year, what really pushed me even further is Disney was walking around. Well, Disney was visiting schools, and they were trying to inspire people to join the company. And they were showing Glenn Keane's animation, the rough pencil animation of Beast, you know, knocking on the door to ask Belle to come out for dinner. And that to me was like, okay, I have to do this, because I loved drawing, obviously, even at that time. But to see your drawings actually move with that much life force, right? It just blew my mind, just totally blew my mind. So I hope it inspires you today to go sit down. You know, nowadays you don't need a giant Disney animation board or a light box. You could do all this stuff in Procreate or in Photoshop. I believe Clip Studio even has timeline in it, and go do your own animation, you know? So have fun with it. And we will see you guys next Friday with another awesome subject to share with you guys. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye, Mike.
See
Take
you,
care.
Matunjay. Bye-bye.